Today we will go with your object oriented programming. So please open the PDF which has been shared in your Google Drive OOP, and go to page number 215, inheritance. So good morning to all again. So please open page number 215. So we will continue with inheritance. So in one of my previous videos, I explained about inheritance. So inheritance basically the concept or the use of inheritance is to support reusability. Okay. So what is this reusability? See, whenever you are writing a program, there are chances that you might want to use the same part of the code again and again. Like you might have seen while we were going for this object oriented or writing any sort of program, so we always use this display function and say get data function. Okay, so if you are writing a complex program, there are chances that you might want to use the same function again and again. So to support this to an extent, this inheritance helps us with that. Okay, now again inheritance also helps you to support this hierarchy, or to maintain the hierarchy in the data. This inheritance also helps us. So you might have seen these types of inheritance like single inheritance, multiple inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and multi-level inheritance. So these are the generic types of inheritance that we have got. Next, in terms of your inheritance, we have got two types. Sorry, we have got two classes. One is the base class, and the other is your derived class. So you can move to page number 217, where they have got a generic syntax for your inheritance. So you see that class followed by derived class name, then there is a colon followed by visibility mode, and then the base class name. So what does this mean? That you are trying to derive from a base class. So derived class name is the class which will be created, and base class name, this will be the class from which you will inherit the properties. Now there are these visibility modes. So generally there are three visibility modes in my object oriented programming: public, private, and protected. Okay, so just see the example: class A, private, xyz. So what does this mean, or what does this statement mean? Means you are deriving the contents of class xyz into class abc, and that is in private mode. So what is private visibility mode, or what does this private mean? or what were the properties. Say if I am defining anything in my private section, so what is the limitation there? So please tell. You can reply it in the chat. No answers. Say if you are defining anything in private section, only the objects of that, yes, it can be accessed only from within the class. Now, if you are defining anything in your public section, so it means it is open to all, right? So you can or anything can access it. So in case of your private, only the objects of the class can access it and some friend functions also. So just go to page number 219. You will see that they have given an example, or you can go to page number 218. Actually, the example starts from 218. So here you will see that first they have defined a class, which is my class B. Okay. So class B, it is having, say, your private part where a single variable is defined, which is my int a, then public part, which is int b, then the member functions are defined like void get ab, void get a, sorry, int get a, and void show. Next, you will see that class D is inheriting the contents of class B publicly. So there again they have defined a data member, which is intc, followed by two member functions, which are mul and display. Okay. Next, they are defining the member functions get ab, get a, show, and so on. Okay. Now here in this example, class D is a public derivation of the base class B. Means D is all the public members of class B, and also it is retaining their visibility. You have to remember one thing, that whatever is there in the public section, that can be inherited directly. So the contents of private section of a base class cannot be inherited. So is it clear up till this part? Any doubts? So next, move to page number 220. So there they have given this diagram, which is representing my class D. So you can see what this memory map is actually having. Means class D is a derivation of class B, but you can see that it is inheriting, means the section which has been highlighted with some dashed line. So that entire section has been inherited from class B. So you can match the contents what has been given in class B, and you will see that whatever was defined in the public section that has been inherited in the public section of class D. Okay. Now this is for public derivation, means you have derived the contents of a base class publicly into a derived class. Now next let's move to the private part, or if you are deriving anything as private, so you will see the same concept, means you will just change the syntax. So just go to page number 221, you will see that there is some comment private derivation. So this is the part where they are actually deriving this particular thing. So class D followed by a colon and private B. So here they are actually going for, or they are implementing this inheritance in this particular statement. So what this is meaning, that you are deriving the contents of class B privately into class D. Okay. So the membership of the derived class D is shown in figure 8.3. So in private derivation, the public members of the base class become private members of the derived class. Therefore, the objects of D cannot have direct access to the public member function of B. So here what happens, whatever has been derived, it is moving to the private section of that particular class. So here whatever has been inherited from class B, it is moving to the private section. Is it clear? So whatever constraints are there for your private data members and member functions, so this entire constraints will be there on the contents which have been inherited. So how do you access a private member function? So that constraint will be there. Okay. Anything? Any doubts? So if you remember, you cannot actually directly call a private member function, isn't it? Do you remember this particular constraint from, well, we had, or while we were covering this private member function? So how do you call a private member function, or any member function which has been declared in this private part of a class? Any answers? Hmm. So it is not with the help of public members of the class. Actually, yes, to an extent with the help of friend function you can use, but ideally, what was the means procedure? You have to access it with the help of some other member functions which have been declared in the public section. So here, if you see in page number 222, you will get this thing. So the statements such as d.getAB, d.getA and d.showA will not work. However, these functions can be used inside mul and display function like the normal functions as shown below. So you can access it with the help of some other member functions which have been declared in the public part. Okay. So program 8.2 incorporates these modifications for private derivation. So don't you guys think that this is a bit problematic? So if I want to maintain this security by deriving it in the private section, so there are, now we have seen that it has resulted in a problem. I cannot access those member functions in the private section. So I have to accordingly modify my member functions, or I have to accommodate the changes so that I am able to access those member functions. So what happens is, next they have defined one more to solve this particular problem only. They have gone for one more visibility mode which is known as my protected. Okay. So next move to section 8.4 or page number 224. So here you will see in that we have just seen how to increase the capabilities of an existing class without modifying it. We have seen that a private member of a base class cannot be inherited and therefore is not available for the derived class directly. So this is also there. This is the first thing that we saw, that the contents of private section cannot be inherited. This is the first, I mean, say, we can say the highlight that we found. And what is the second thing? Second thing is, if you are deriving anything directly in the private part of a derived class, still you cannot access the member functions. So what do you do if the private data needs to be inherited by a derived class? So this can be accomplished by modifying the visibility limit of the private data member by making it public. This would make it accessible to all other functions. So here they're telling that if you want to derive anything in private, so you just change the visibility to public, but this will again say compromise our security constraints that we have. Means it will be visible to all the say functions of the program. So what C++ provides a third visibility modifier which is my protected, so which serves a limited purpose in inheritance. So this protected is extends protected visibility modifier. This is extensively used in case of your inheritance only. So a member declared as protected is accessible by the member function within the class and any class immediately derived from it. Okay, it cannot be accessed by the functions outside these two classes. It is in your Puja, it is in your Google Drive. Okay, in Google Drive, I think there is a folder which is my IT 221 object oriented programming. So within this particular folder, you will get there is one more subfolder which is theory. So inside this theory folder, you will get this PDF. So why actually I chose for going for reading this PDF is, see, if I am going for presentation also, still you won't have, at the end of the day, you won't have sufficient materials or notes also. Okay, again, so I have to prepare the materials and again I have to share it. So it is actually a bit time consuming. So what I have selected right now is I will directly take up the PDF and I will start uh, explaining the sections in the PDF so that you have the materials and also you understand the contents. So I feel that this would be a bit faster also and also a bit easier and also helpful for you in exams and for managing your exams and your classes, whatever. So what is this protected member, visibility modifier? So it specifies that a member declared as protected is accessible by the member function within its class and any class immediately derived from it. So let's just see the example. So just uh, so when a protected member is inherited in public mode, it becomes protected in the derived class too, and therefore is accessible by the member function of the derived class. It is also ready for further inheritance. A protected member inherited in private mode derivation becomes private in the derived class. Although it is available to the member function of the derived class, but it is not available for further inheritance since private members cannot be inherited. So what does this paragraph specify? It specifies that if you are declaring any member function as protected, so it means that if you are inheriting any uh, public member as protected, sorry, I made a mistake. So when a protected member is inherited in public, it becomes protected, and if it is inherited in private, it becomes private. So based on the derivation mode, the context will change. Okay, so and the simple rules whatever were defined previously, so that will follow. Means if you are declaring it in public mode, so whatever contents are there in your protected or in your protected scope, it will become public and you can inherit it later on. And if it is inherited as private, so it cannot be derived later on. Okay, so just see the diagram here. So class B, you can move to page number 225. So here you will see that there is a diagram there. So class B, it has got private, protected and public sections. So you will see that private they have explicitly marked not inheritable. So protected, you will see that they have gone for inheriting this protected part. So in the first case, they have inherited it in as or in public mode. So the left hand side, class D1 public B. So you will see that protected whatever is there, it is again becoming protected in your class D1. And if you see the right hand side, class D2 private B, so the protected part or the protected section of this particular uh, B class B, it is coming in the private section. Okay, and you can go for further derivations from this class D1 and D2. So is it clear how this visibility mode will effectively change the access of the protected members? Any doubts? Just try to follow the diagram. Any doubts? Yes, page 225. Just see the diagram and also read the paragraph which is just above the diagram. So, what this diagram is specifying is if you are declaring anything as protected in your base class, which is my class B, and during inheritance, if you inherit it as or in public mode, what does it mean? This entire content will be inherited as protected only. Means the visibility of this contents will be protected. But if you are inheriting it as private or in private mode, so whatever contents will be there in your protected part, this will be going to the private section of the derived class. So you can see that here left hand side there is this D1 and right hand side it is D2. So in case of D1 they have inherited the contents of class B in public mode. So as a result what has happened? So whatever was there in the protected section of the class B, it has moved to protected section of class D1. And in class D2 what has happened? Whatever was there in the protected section of the class B, it has moved to the private section of class D2. Yes, it can be accessed, no issues. So, Jyotirmo, if you are finding it difficult, just see this diagram. Figure 8.2 in page number 220. So here you will see that they have derived. You can just follow the previous example. So in that example, what they were specifying, they were inheriting the content of class B in public mode. So as a result, what has happened? The contents of class B moved to the public section of class D. Just go to figure 8.2 and also 8.3. So you will see that whatever contents you are inheriting, so based on your visibility mode, it will move to the appropriate sections of the derived class. Okay. So in case of your protected, what is happening? If you are inheriting the contents as public, so the contents of the protected member will move to the contents of the protected member in the derived class. And if you are inheriting it in private mode, the contents of the protected member, protected section will move to the private section of the class. Okay. So based on or with the help of this protected uh, I mean visibility scope, you can effectively address these derivation issues. Like previously, if you want to inherit and also maintain the security, so you can appropriately change the contents. Like if I want to inherit some contents in the use this protected and derive it privately. So as a result, what will happen? It cannot be accessed by any other function or any other say objects. And if I want to go for subsequent derivations, I can inherit it publicly, so the contents will be there in your protected section and you can go on further derivation. So if you see here class X in figure 8.4, what they have done here, they have inherited the contents of class D1 as well as D2. Now this is the case of your multiple inheritance. So as a result, they have used two visibility modes. Okay. So in one case, they have derived the contents of D1 publicly and they have derived the contents of D2 as protected. So you can just see how the data is flowing or the appropriate sections of the data where it is flowing. So protected member or the protected part moves to the protected part of X, and you will see here again in case of D2 the contents of protected part moves to the protected part of X, and public. So here is because you have derived it in protected mode D2, the contents of public section moves to protected. So I know it is a bit confusing initially, but please just try to follow the diagram. It will clear out eventually. It is not that difficult also. So moving to the next page, 226, just try to read it here, what they are specifying. The keywords private, protected, and public may appear in any order and any number of times in the declaration of a class. Okay. So for example, class beta, protected, public, private, public is a valid class definition. However, the normal practice is to use them as follows. So first you will specifically uh, define the private part followed by protected and finally your public part. So it is also possible to inherit a base class in protected mode. So in protected derivation, what happens? So previously we were only inheriting the contents of a base class in either in public mode or private mode. Now it is also possible to inherit the contents of a base class in protected mode. So in protected derivation, what happens? So in protected derivation, both the public and protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. So if you are inheriting anything in protected mode, so it will move to the protected section of the derived class. Okay. So table 8.1 summarizes how the visibility of a base class members undergoes modification in all the three types of derivation. So move to page number 227. You will see here they have given a table. Now this table is very important. So base class visibility means this private, protected, public, these are the base class visibility means the contents of your base class. So what will happen if you derive the contents publicly? So public derivation, then you have got private derivation and protected derivation. Now what happens to the private part of a base class? So cannot be inherited. First of all, no matter what derivation you use, whether it is public, whether it is private, whether it is protected, no issues, you cannot inherit the private section. So protected section, so if you are inheriting the protected section in public mode, so it moves to the protected part. Okay, if you are inheriting it in private mode, so what happens, the protected part moves to the private section of the derived class. Now if you are inheriting the protected section of the derived base class as protected mode, or in protected mode if you are inheriting it, so it will move to the protected section of the derived class public section. So in what happens with the public section, so if you are inheriting it in public mode, so it will move to the public section. If you are inheriting it in private mode, it will move to the private section. And if you are inheriting it in protected mode, so it will move to the protected part of the derived class. So is this visibility mode clear? So these derivations are only possible. So this try to understand this table 8.1. So if you just remember this table, it is sufficient. You can means go for any sort of derivation. So this is the generalized rule which is permitted. You cannot have anything else beyond this. So is it clear, this table? Any doubts? So just to move to the previous page, page number 226. So now let us, I mean the last part of the page. Now let us review the access control to the private and protected members of a class. So what are the various functions that can have access to those members? Okay. So if you are inheriting anything as private and protected, so what are the access, or what all functions can have access to those members? Okay. So first is a function that is a friend of the class. Okay. So a friend function can have access to private as well as protected members of a derived class. So a member function of a class that is a friend of the class. Okay. A member function of a derived class. So basically your friend function, then your member function. So this can have access to this private and protected data. So while the friend function and the member function of a friend class can have direct access to both the private and protected data, the member functions of a derived class can directly access only the protected data. However, they can access the private data through member functions of the base class. Okay, so figure 8.5 is illustrating it. So access members mechanism in a class. So here if you see, here there is class X and there is a friend class which is my class Y. So X and Y are friends. Okay, so I think I took up this friend class. So x and y are friends. So f x1 and x2 are your say data members, whatever are there, and y2 and y1. So here what they're telling is private, sorry, these are functions basically. So fx1, x2, fy1, y2. So you can see x1, x2 can access the data of this private section, and if you see here function 1, which is a friend function of x, so this can have access to it as well as protected data. Whereas if there is a friend class, so its functions can have access to the private and protected data of class x. Now class z, so it is inheriting from class y. Okay, so here if you see f of z1, so this is actually in the um, uh, a member function of class z. So this is in your private part. Now this x f of x1, fx1 is in private section and fx2 is in protected section. Okay, so you can see that fz1 can have access to private data of class x via a member function base class, and f of z2 can have direct access to the protected data members of class x. So just try to follow the figure 8.2 and also relate it to the previous page description what they've given. While a friend function and the member function of a friend class, okay, can have direct access to both private and protected data, the member functions of a derived class can directly access only the protected data. However, they can access the private data through the member function of a base class. So this is the access mechanism which is there in your class. So how you can access the various data in various sections of the class. So any doubts? Okay, then let's move to the next section. That is my multi-level inheritance. So what? There will be multiple levels of inheritance. Means you can see figure 8.7 in page number 228. So you'll see that you have got base class, then an intermediate base class, and finally your derived class. Okay, so B is getting derived from A, whereas C is getting derived from B. Okay, so this is your multi-level inheritance. So you can see there is an example in page number 229 where they have I think defined a class uh, student. So let us consider a simple example. Assuming the test results of a batch of students are stored in three different classes: class student, students, roll number, class, test stores the marks obtained in two subjects, and class result contains the total marks obtained in the test. The class result can inherit the details of marks obtained in test and the roll numbers of students through multi-level inheritance. So here what they have defined an say class test which is inheriting the contents from your class student as well as one more class. What is the name of that class? Result. Okay. Result is the final derived class and it is inheriting from class test. Test in turn is inheriting from student. So this is the example of multi-level inheritance. So you can just see this and you can also practice it. Okay. So so I think it is too much for today. So in next class we'll take up this multiple inheritance and also we'll try to finish up this entire inheritance part. So whatever is there, virtual base class and abstract classes. Okay, I think it will take two classes to cover up this entire thing. So we'll try in the next class. So any doubts? And please read this entire part, whatever has been covered, because if you don't relate it, will there are high chances that you are likely to forget it. Any doubts? And uh, so when should be the next session? I think tomorrow I will take this again one more session. It will cover up your this inheritance, and also we will try to cover up something from computer architecture. Yes, you can go for self study, and I am also for this reason only I stopped today, because if I go for any further topic, I think there are high chances that you will confuse yourself, because it is very difficult in this form of communication. Actually, I cannot see your expressions, right? So I don't know whether you are understanding or not, whether you are confused or whether it is too much. Because during class, uh, just by seeing the faces also, we can say a lot of or we can guess a lot of things. But in this form of communication, it is very difficult. Sessions with 1 day interval. Yes, previously I was thinking about this only, but I think daily sessions would be better to finish up the syllabus actually. What I will try to do is I will try to reduce the contents, and we will go for daily sessions at least for 1 hour. Within 1 hour, I won't take anything more than 1 hour, because it is very difficult to sit for more than 1 hour. So tentatively within 1 hour, I will try to cover up whatever I want. See, this is also a new form of communication. So I am also going through a learning curve. Okay. So I think today's class was a bit better than the last one, because last one was very horrible as far as I remember. It was very horrible. Okay then, thank you for listening. So may I know who all are present today? So please, you can just all of you can give your roll numbers. So Unmilon is there, Iftika, Novamita, Ankita, Jyotirmoy, Oprotim, and I think one more. Yes, Novamita was there. And one more person I saw was Puja, Danish, Upasana. So only these people. Okay, Riku. Anyone else who is present now? Anyone else who is present? See, I am actually able to see how many are present, because when you go for live session, it directly shows how many are actually viewing the contents. Okay, so I know how many are present. But what happens is, what some students are doing, they are seeing it. I know, because at the end we can also see how many views are there. So previous video, there were 63 views. Okay, but what I observed was all of them were not seeing it for the entire duration. Say some just logged in, so for say 5 to 10 minutes, and then they left. Okay, so please don't miss these sessions right now, because I will directly cover up these contents. So please try to be there as long as you like. Now, why these things are important? Because see, I don't know, and based on yesterday's situation, so what will be the future of this nation? It is very doubtful. So what I thought was, I will finish off your syllabus. How much I can. So please don't miss it. Try to attend it. Yes, I know it is sometimes a bit difficult also for me, because I am not able to get feedbacks. So please try to follow it, and also read the materials, so that you have got a better understanding of what you are studying. And it is for this reason I thought of directly taking up the contents from the PDF or books, so that at the end you have got something to read, and also so that your concepts are clear, and also it is a bit intuitive for you to understand the materials. Okay then, thank you. We will tentatively meet tomorrow or day after tomorrow.